Hello and welcome to this videocast for subscribers to davidicke.com. Well, bit by bit, drip by drip, the scale of the paedophile networks around the world, not least currently being exposed in Britain, is coming out. When I first wrote about the scale of it and the names involved in a book called The Biggest Secret in the late 1990s, it was seen as outrageous. Couldn't be. That couldn't happen. Now, as more and more comes out, people are beginning to reevaluate their scale and their perception of the possible. And to, to understand the nature of what is happening and the scale of it, the depth of it, you've really got to get our heads around the fact that pure undiluted evil is directing the world and manipulating events, and that what you see in the apparent world that we experience is merely a facade. It's merely a movie screen behind which untold, unspeakable evil goes on. The latest strand in this hidden web to start to appear now is the former cabinet minister, former Home Secretary, and other positions in the Margaret Thatcher administration in the 1980s, called Leon Brittan. He died a few days ago, and as a result, the open secret that was not spoken due to libel laws, etc., and outright suppression, the unspoken secret started to be revealed. Here's just a couple of newspaper headlines. Britain abused me when I was 10 is one of them. Another one, cops filmed Leon Brittan at underage abuse house, and so it goes on. I've been investigating the paedophile networks, the elite paedophile networks involving some of the most famous people on the planet for 2 decades. And Leon Brittan was a name that came up quite often in the accounts of people who were describing what had happened to them. So I've been watching the Leon Brittan evolving situation with a shaking head, because when it was announced that Geoffrey Dickens, the Conservative MP, had handed a dossier of elite paedophiles to Leon Brittan when he was Home Secretary in the Thatcher government, and that this dossier, having been given to Brittan, went missing, it was like, well, it's obvious why it went missing, because Leon Brittan was a paedophile within the Westminster Downing Street paedophile ring that Dickens was in part exposing. It's no coincidence that the Thatcher Attorney General at the time was a man called Michael Havers, who is now named by victims as participating in paedophile parties where children were abused. And it was the same Michael Havers who sought, at the same time as Leon Brittan, to stop the naming of a British diplomat as a paedophile. So when Michael Havers' sister, Baroness Butler Sloss, was named to head the inquiry into the dossier and what happened to it and why it went missing involving Leon Brittan, then you start to realize that they're laughing at us, and there's another agenda here, and it's not to expose those responsible for elite paedophilia. When you then have a outcry about the ludicrousness of Butler Sloss's appointment by Home Secretary, currently Theresa May, and the next one installed is Fiona Woolf, Lord Mayor of London, who is a friend, seems to be a close friend, of Leon Brittan's wife, friend too of Leon Brittan, and lives in the same street as Leon Brittan when Leon Brittan is the star main witness of the inquiry into what the heck happened to that dossier, etc. Then you know, like I say, that the agenda is not to reveal the truth, but to keep the lid on it. What they're actually saying is we'll leave no stone unturned unless one of our people is underneath it. And then you have the situation where Leon Brittan dies of cancer, and what is called, he died after a long battle against cancer. Well, why wasn't that mentioned when this inquiry was set up? Why wasn't it relevant when, because of the ludicrous nature of the appointees to head the inquiry, it was delayed and delayed and delayed, as people said, there's no credibility having this person or this person, so delay, delay, delay. Why was that not brought to the surface? Hey, this man is clearly in a late stage of cancer, as it turned out, if the cancer story is true. And yet there was no urgency to get him before anybody to be questioned while they still could. Instead, he died. And with him, the ability to question him about what happened. Now, there was another guy who was head of the children's home, manager of the children's home, a guy called Stingemore, who was head of the children's home that was supplying children to be abused at a place called the Elm Guest House in London. And one of the people named on the list of abusers by people who were connected to Elm House was Leon Brittan. One of the people exposing this says that he saw pictures of Leon Brittan with naked children at Elm House on his knee. So, within a few days of each other, Stingemore dies just before he's supposed to appear in court to face charges, and then Brittan dies before he can be questioned by the inquiry. And it turns out, after he died, when it was revealed, before he can be questioned by police about the raping of boys, about a boy being beaten to death in front of him, and other issues. And when you've been on the road of researching this subject for as long as I have now, it's another head shaker, because you're just seeing repeated the same methods and techniques of cover-up so it doesn't come out. And that's what we're seeing now more and more blatantly.